In today's video, I'm going to talk about surviving career and life meltdown, how to deal with regrets over past choices, and also about why it's never too late to really look for new opportunities. I'm Greg Taylor, counselor and coach, and welcome to my channel, Make Life Better, where I share tips and tools and resources for you to be able to live your best life. I was recently asked by my alma mater, the university I graduated from with my master's in counseling, to speak to a group of students via Zoom to talk about career and life. They were having career month sessions, and they had asked me, because of my background in career counseling and career coaching, to talk about some career theories and strategies. And I could have done the traditional approach, taken the traditional approach of being able to kind of use slides and talk about theories and ideas. And instead, what I decided to do was to actually teach people about career and life journey and the factors that can help with success and the challenges we face by sharing my own personal story. You see, not everything has been always easy, just as it is with everyone's story. We all face challenges at different times, and I faced mine. And so one of the stories I told in this session was about a time in my life earlier in my 20s when I actually went through a career life meltdown. And so my story starts out by going to university, taking a business degree, and graduating and finding a really amazing job with a large company that produced medical and consumer products. And I got into them with them in the marketing research department. And so here's the story and what happens from there.
Ended up getting into marketing research in a head office in Montreal, where I was living and grew up, and ended up realizing as I was working in that field that it wasn't going to be enough for me to progress in marketing and without getting sales experience. Everyone was saying, well, have you ever sold anything? And to get more advanced into marketing. And so partly due to the fact that I wanted to progress in my career, sounded like a good idea, partly because it was an adventure, because if I got into their sales division, I'd probably be moved to another region of Canada. And also, when you're not so sure about your life and your stressors and everything else, sometimes just escaping sounds like a good idea too. So I ended up applying to sales and moving out west, and got initially to Winnipeg and then eventually to Calgary. And I worked in the sales division selling medical and products to hospitals. And so that was a whole new leap. And there were parts of that job that were really great. I was able to do a lot of customer service, helping people. I ended up in territories where there hadn't been sales reps for quite some time. And so I got to build relationships. I got to train medical staff with our products. And there was that higher mission again about the kind of nature of the work in healthcare. The downside was that as I got into those jobs, as I spent more time in them, the push became more and more about hard sales, right? So it was about signing the new contract, renegotiating pricing, finding new customers. And so it became much more of an extroverted sales role than I was really good at. So I succeeded early in the job because I was going into territories that needed that customer service kind of client care. But as the role progressed and I did that, then it was much more pressure. And to be honest, just I don't know where other people are at in their journey, but I had a major life meltdown at that point. I was in my 20s. I thought I was in this career path that built from university on. I had committed to people that I would do well at this career. But I ground down. The nature of the job just was not a fit for me. I didn't know how to talk about that with people. I moved away from all my supports and family. And so I really had a serious meltdown at that point, and mental health problems and some addiction issues that flared up at that time. And so some of the reality of career is that it doesn't all go easy, even with the best of intent and the best choices. And so it may take time to recover, to recuperate, to make a transition. And so I wasn't able to work for some time. And then I realized, well, usually you realize you need work, no matter what your state, when you run out of money. And so there was a period where I had to then decide, what am I going to do? And so I ended up being able to get into a waitering job for a couple of years. And it was the perfect career transition for me because I got to work with the public. I didn't have to take work home with me. and I could do varied shifts based on how I was doing. And so it was a great bridging job.
So there you have me talking about that challenging time in my life. At the end of the clip, I actually talk about how I ended up in a bridging job doing a waitering position. I actually stayed in that job for a couple of years. It was just the right job for me to be able to do during that time in my life to kind of recover from my career crisis and life crisis, to have some time to be able to do some healing and also to figure out what I wanted next. And so I go on to tell the story about how I initially got into small business consulting and then later into career and employment counseling. And that's a story I can tell more about another time. But this challenging time really had a huge impact on my life. As I said in the clip, I really did think that that phase of my life, I really had screwed things up, that I really thought it had ruined the pathway I was on in my career. But it also opened up all kinds of new doors, as I really had a crash because of the lack of good fit in the career that I was in and needed some time to grow and mature, but also being able to start to look at new opportunities that really ended up taking off. And so people have asked me, and one of the questions in this session that came up was a question about how to deal with regrets. When you have those tough times in your life, how do you deal with those regrets? And here's how we responded.
Life is a long journey, and it leaves room for mistakes because there's time to correct them. I think we have to have grace and with ourselves because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't have the ability to foresee the future, and sometimes we just make the best decision we can in the moment. And sometimes that was a really crappy decision. But it was the best one we could make. It wasn't a good one, but with what we knew at the time, or desperation, whatever, and it's the too late thing, right? I think we buy into the fact that because my path doesn't match the projection I've made for myself, doesn't make it a failure. It doesn't take away from my value as a person. It doesn't take away from the potential opportunities I can create. And so sometimes we need to let go, right? Part of, it's like a relationship, right? When we talk about people being on the rebound, people lose a job and then they scurry so quickly into looking for a new job that they get it, but in the same mindset, the same experience, the same pathway that they were in before, and then wonder why they aren't happy in the new place just because it had a different face, a different name. It was the same thing because we didn't learn enough new about ourselves. So that's why the transition process that people can go through, right? The endings, have I really let go of the past, evaluated what happened and why, but really just let go of the past? Have I, forgiven myself, forgiven others? Have I really come to a conclusion to let that go? And then in the midst of that, say, well, now who am I? And what's important to know about myself and where I go next? So that as I start to make new decisions towards new beginnings, I'm making them based on a new mindset of who I am. And so I think if people have regrets like that, then I would say it's a good time for a meditation, a journaling, a session, a counseling session with somebody to be able to finally grieve. You're allowed to grieve making a mistake and that it threw you off course, but do it, right? You're allowed to reconcile, okay, as much as I try and excuse it, I made a crappy decision, but it was because of these factors. And then wrap it up, and you don't forget it, but you make it just a part of your story, a part of your journey. Did I think leaving that sales job and having that mental health breakdown, was I going to have a successful life from there? At the time, no. I thought I'd done it to myself, but there were time and opportunities and a full life of amazing adventure after that. So that's my encouragement to people.
So that was my take on how to handle regrets. You'll notice that during that session, I talked about the transitions process, and it's one that I use with lots of clients in helping them go through changes and challenges in life. And as I mentioned in the video, there's really 3 stages to the transition process. There's the first stage called endings or losses, and that's where we go through quite often the full spectrum of the grieving process. Much like when somebody passes away in our life or we lose something significant, we can go through stages of denial and bargaining and anger and sadness and depression. And that can happen too, even in major career losses that we have. things that we thought were going to work out, much like in my story. The second phase is what they call the neutral zone or the transition zone, and that's the time when you get to kind of reevaluate what's just happened. So after you start to let go of what the ending was, but then you kind of turn around and say, well, now what? Who am I now, and what do I want to be different? And so in that kind of transition zone, that's when we can start to reflect on our values, to do some career planning, some counseling work, talking to others, and thinking about what is this next phase for me all about. And it's from that self-reflection that quite often new opportunities start to show up in what we call the new beginnings. That time when we can start to make steps forward, and whether that's going back to school or getting some specific training or doing information interviews with people to learn more about a career, or in personal life being able to move to a new place or make new steps in new relationships. And so in those new beginnings, that's what really launches us. And quite often when having done a good real evaluation, we can come upon new opportunities that we just might not have seen before. And so when these challenges happen and we get past these regrets, quite often people end up telling me, and I've had so many clients tell me this, that it's too late. And so in this next segment, I kind of address that question that came up in that last segment just about regrets, when people say, well, what if you feel like it's too late to make a change? So here's what I shared.
Hey, what about that dream you always had of progressing the caring and helping people piece of your life by going back and doing a master's in counseling? And so it was by ending the one thing that it opened up the opportunity for me to really reflect and take the opportunity to go back to school. And so that's when I did it. And so I was 49, graduated when I was 51, 52. And so one of the things I'd like to share is that it's never too late either, right? I think one of the things I hear from people is, well, it feels like it's too late. Everybody's stressed about their career and they think it's too late. And I talk to people in their 20s, right? And for me, that's just the starting point. And they feel like it's too late. They didn't get a job right out of university, or they didn't go to university. And they're feeling like, oh my God, I don't have a career established. It's too late. I talk to people in their 30s who have been done interim jobs or got into a track of a career that was great while they were younger, but maybe not so much something what they want to continue. And so they're feeling like, it's too late, right? And then you get people in their 40s and 50s thinking, well, I put all this time in a career, so now it's too late. And then you get people in their 50s, 60s, and saying, well, I'm older now. I don't have enough time, right, to do a lot. So it's too late. So everybody's in this ballgame of it's too late. And so my message is it's not too late to have awesome experiences, to have new adventures in your career and work life. And really, it's, I think, ingrained in our DNA somehow societally that career is a ladder, right? That we're climbing the ladder. And really, career is a lattice work, right? The world of work is this broad spectrum of careers that crisscross across the span of work and life. And so that's really what I've done, right? I've been in the recreation field doing my lifeguarding. I've had my sales jobs in marketing and business. But skills from that actually got me into the field, even though a different one, right? So all of those sales skills, people skills, training skills transferred over into the career and employment field, and were the foundation I built that career on. And then all of that people work and training, once I got my master's in counseling and my business management, got me into my new field where I am now.
So I hope that last segment was helpful to you. I really have found that people, no matter what stage of life, suddenly feel like it's too late, like we're under this pressure to perform, this pressure to succeed. And as I said, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, so many people don't grab on to new opportunities or even look for new opportunities because they have that mindset that somehow they've missed the boat or it's too late. So don't let that happen to you. And so overall in this video, I've talked about a number of things. I've talked about the career life crisis, and it can happen to anyone, and it doesn't have to dictate the rest of your life. Just like with me, I'm known for my success in career and life coaching, in running nonprofits, and in the other work that I've done in owning my own business. And so people just see that, and they're surprised sometimes when I tell them this story about the challenges that I faced earlier in my life. So This video is really for you if you're facing struggles now or you have in the past and you're wondering what the future holds. Really, my message to you is to not lose hope and to keep striving and to build resilience so that you can continue to move forward. And if you hear those voices saying to you that somehow it's too late, or to make the safe choice, right? How many of us have these other voices? People who are well-meaning but really are trying to keep us safe. And so they tell us not to take the risk or not to move forward or to stay where we are because maybe it's just a little bit safer. But what I've learned in helping clients over the years is the people who make the safe choice of staying the same, well, the world changes around them and they end up getting left behind. So it's best, as soon as you start to notice those symptoms or those signs that it's actually time to make a change, pay attention to that voice and start to do some exploration. You don't have to make wild risks without any planning, but start to make the planning. Get some coaching, get some help at looking at your options, do your research, and then start to make small inroads or small choices towards that future. And there's nothing worse than regrets, but you can live through them. And so if you make a choice and it's not the perfect one, you'll be able to recoup and you'll be able to move forward to the future. And so my message to you is to always hold out hope and always come back. And so if this session has helped you in any way, make sure to click like. And if you'd like more lessons on how to make life better, whether it's about career, life, psychology, then make sure to subscribe to my channel. And we'll see you next time.